Hi, this is Rabbi David Fohrman, and you are watching Aleph Beta. Welcome to Parshat Devarim. One of the great challenges of any religion is faith. Often we think of the central challenge of faith as belief in God, believing that God exists, that He's around, and yet the Torah uses the word Amunah in a way which almost certainly does not mean that. After the splitting of the sea, Vaya'aminu ba'Hashem, the people had faith in God. Was that the first time they believed that God existed? In this week's parsha, Moshe castigates the people for lack of faith in the sin of the spies. Does Moshe seriously mean to say that the Jews did not believe in God? They doubted His existence? They got manna from heaven? Experienced revelation at Sinai? Saw the 10 plagues? Saw the sea split? These guys didn't believe that God was around? We might consider faith the last thing that the Jews of the desert would have struggled with. And yet, according to Moshe, this is the people's crime in the wake of the report of the spies. The Torah isn't talking about faith in terms of belief that God exists. The Israelites in the desert knew God exists. And what the Torah is really telling you is that the real journey of faith begins then. Believing that God exists, that's the little leagues. What happens after you believe that? There's the real journey of faith. That's the big leagues. Today I want to talk to you about that journey towards something else. After we believe that God exists, what is that something else? And whatever it is, what are the milestones that we pass in getting there? How do we achieve this thing called faith? Let's try to define the term. It turns out that the word emunah is used not just to describe human feelings. It's actually used to describe something that seems to have very little to do with faith at all. Moshe's arms in the battle against Amalek. The Jews prevailed in that battle only so long as Moshe's arms were raised. His arms were tired, so Aaron and Hur held his arms up, Vayihi yadav emunah ad bo hashamesh, and his arms were emunah, they were steadfast, until the sun set. Faith, or emunah, I think, is identified with that idea of steadfastness. When you take it out of the realm of inanimate objects like arms, and you take it into the realm of human relationships, it's a kind of steadfast quality in my relationship with you, a kind of unflinching willingness to trust you, even as I confront my deepest fears. That's the sense in which Moshe uses it in this week's parsha. The Jews were afraid. They were afraid of conquering the land. They looked at the inhabitants of the land and they seemed like giants. Moshe accuses them of a lack of faith in that moment. And in this, you didn't have faith, you didn't have trust, you weren't steadfast with God. You shrunk away from God, even as God lovingly was telling you to trust Him. It's very interesting, I think, that when Moshe makes his accusation, he doesn't say that you fail to blindly have faith in God. He actually appeals to a kind of rational basis for that faith, to their experience. He says, look at your experience. Hashem Elokeichem ha'olech lifneichem, the God, your God, who walks before you. Hu yilachem lachem, He's the one who's going to fight for you. Kachol asher asaytchem mitzrayim leinechem, He's going to do for you just as He did against Egypt, before your very eyes. Ubamidbar asher ra'ita, and in this desert you've seen asher nasa'acha Hashem, how God has carried you. Kasher yisa ishet b'no, like a man will carry his child. He's appealing to their experience. You have grounds for faith. But you, in this thing, have failed. You haven't had faith in God. In Moshe's worldview, faith doesn't come from nothing. It comes from observing things about your beloved that makes them trustworthy. The Maharal, the famous Rabbi Isaac Lowy of Prague, identifies 3 milestones and correlates them with the 3 times the word emunah first appears in the Torah, in the story of the Exodus. Maharal suggests that the Jewish people experienced 3 things that gave them rational grounds for faith. The first thing they experienced, the first time the word faith is used in the story of the Exodus. When Moshe came to the elders of Israel and said, God came to me, and here are the signs that God came to me. The Israelites understood that God saw their suffering. The first thing the Maharal says is, I need to know that you care for me, that you have empathy for me, that you see my suffering. But if all I know is that, it is still not rational for me to place my faith in you. I need to know more. The next time the word faith appears in the Exodus story is at the splitting of the sea. Vayaminu b'Hashem b'Moshe avdo. The people believed in God and Moshe his servant. What did they see then? They saw an incredible display of the power of the Master of the universe. In order to really have faith in you, it's not enough for you to have empathy. You also have to have the power to help me. But even if I know that you have the power to help me, and even if I know that you care and you have empathy, I still need to know one more thing. And that brings us to the third instance of faith recorded in the Torah. It happens at Sinai. God says, I will come to you, Moshe, and I will speak to you in a way that the people will be able to hear me speaking to you. V'gam b'cha ya'aminu la'olam, so that they should have faith in you and in the communication between me and you forever. If I know that you have power and I know that you care for me, but I do not know that you understand me, if I suspect that perhaps you're so wrapped up in your own world that you cannot really get what it is that I need, I still cannot place myself in your hands. When the Jewish people saw God, who is so different from them, a being that you cannot touch, that you cannot feel, that you cannot see, actually successfully communicate with Moshe, they became convinced that God understood Moshe and Moshe understood God. Then the final ingredient for faith existed. If I know that you love me and that you feel empathy towards me, if I know that you have the power to help, and I know that you really get what it is that I need, then I can trust you. There are grounds for me to place my faith in you, and then the real challenge occurs. My faith at that moment is still a product of an act of will, of sheer power on my part, to confront my fears and to take that leap. Trust is always hard. To steadfastly place yourself in the arms of your beloved, even as your beloved reassures you that they will take care of you through the darkest night, through the greatest terrors. It's a tough thing. When you steadfastly place your fate in the hands of someone who loves you, when you abandon yourself to them, you achieve a dizzying kind of intimacy with them. That intimacy, as rewarding as it is also scary. It's a kind of leaving yourself behind, a kind of merging unabashedly with another. There's no more hiding. What of my sense of self? Am I losing it all to you? Loss of control involves a loss of self. And loss of self is always scary. And if you're the entire Israelite people, it's scary with God. It's easier to just shrink back and say, God, I'm just not going to do this. I'd rather go back to Egypt. And it's here that you get to the great consequences of failing to have faith. Because listen carefully to the bone-chilling words that the people say when they shrink away from God in the sin of the spies. They don't just say, we couldn't do this. They say, B'sinat Hashem otanu hotzianu miMitzrayim. It was in God's hatred of us that they took us out of Egypt. It sounds like insanity. How could you say that? That's what lack of faith will do to you. If I have grounds to place my faith in you, if I know that you love me, I know that you have the power to help me, I know you understand me, and I balk at my willingness to cede control to you, I have to explain that failure to myself. What will I tell myself? Will I be honest that I just didn't have the courage to place myself in your hands? Or will I lie to myself and to you and compromise one of those three pillars? In the case of the Jews, the pillar they compromised was love. They found a way to look back on their experience and say, our experience teaches us that God doesn't love us, He hates us. As crazy as it is, it's the only way that they can come to rationalize their unwillingness to place their faith in God. And this is why the challenge of faith is such a challenge. Because when faith is warranted, when our experience gives us reasons to extend ourselves in trust, but we fail to take that leap which has an element of blindness, the willingness to just let go and let our beloved lead us through our darkest fears. Once we reach that point, our relationship will never be the same. If we do it successfully, we will have achieved the most dizzying kind of intimacy with our beloved. But if we fail, everything can come crumbling down when we tell ourselves that really there was never any love there at all, and we are not to blame. May we rise to this challenge when it's asked of us in all of our relationships, with God, with our wives, with our husbands, with our children, with our parents. It is a supreme test, one we dare not fail.
Hi YouTube, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And for even more amazing Torah videos, check out aleph-beta.org. Just click the link below.